section on Hadrian's Wall. We've got rain stories this week. We've got dawn stories. But this is the first dawn story done with a special guest, which we will get to later. We've also got a section with another special guest about the horse chestnut. And we also have had a fair bit of interaction on the Facebook group. We've had 2 posts come in of pictures of dawn. One being in Australia, coming from Judith, and we had one locally in the UK coming from Linda. Now, it's great to see it, and please keep it up because we love seeing what you guys have got to show us as well, which is amazing. Now, we have got a lot to get in, so please, in the chat, please put 1 if you would like us to finish at 8 o'clock, because we do try and plan for an hour. But we have got a jam-packed show, so if you don't mind sticking around for an extra 10-15 minutes, please let us know by putting 2 in the chat. So that's 1 for finishing at 8 o'clock and 2 for finishing 10-15 minutes after. So we've got 3 twos coming, which is good. Another 2. It's a lot of 2s. It's what I like to see. More 2s. Many more 2s.
Excellent.
Clearly we're doing something right then. That's always a good start.
Not too many number 2s. That's the thing, though.
Yeah, just not too many.
Okay. So we always like to kind of bookend our show with a little bit of a kind of slightly philosophical or well-being angle. And I've been reading this book. It's called Being Rock by Mandy Priest. And it's an amazing read. It's about listening. And it's about how we talk to ourselves. And there's a lovely little section towards the end, and I'm going to read it to you rather than waffle, as I often do. I'm going to read this to you. So this is talking about why we should be outside. And it says, the trick is to do something which totally relaxes your body and your mind. There is also lots of evidence that the natural environment is our best anti-stress gym. Studies are now showing how being in nature restores mental health. All of us need to rewild regularly by spending time outside, especially around trees. That's handy. We're going to be talking about the horse chestnut tonight. Scientists are now proving the healing effects of trees. Trees release essential oils called phytoncides, which naturally improve human immune systems. Studies of 20-year-olds in Japan found that forest visits lowered their cortisol, pulse rates, and blood pressure. So doses of nature are recommended for all of us, especially if we live in urban environments and much of our lives are spent interacting with screens. We need to get outside in nature, turn off our phones and Fitbits and just wander. Remember, don't make it hard, just be alongside nature. The other way is to reboot, is to do a physical activity which engages your brain as well as your body. Dance and rock climbing, for instance, require our brains to focus on the activity and away from our anxieties. Makes absolute sense. So, following on from the last 2 sections, remember in the first episode we talked about how amazingly lucky we are to actually have a world like this to live in and exist on it as we do. And last week we talked about where our sense of awareness is and that's something bigger than our senses. So this week it's time to kind of hone in on our senses. And the first one, in many ways the most important one, is that sense of touch. It's the only sense we have that is two-way. You know, we can reach out and touch things, and that's possibly how we think about touch, but it's the one that makes us it's also the one that makes us take our coat off or our jumper off if we're too hot, or conversely, put them back on again if we're too cold. It's the one that in April, when that heat of the sun first really starts to have an impact at the beginning of the year, that we actually got. This is really amazing, and just enjoy that heat without getting overly sweaty or just getting too warm. And if you balance that with that, when you go out on a fresh, crisp day in the winter, and allows you to really appreciate the differences between that. But also it's the one that kind of, it makes us human. I mean, one of the things that we do and we enjoy as humans is physical contact, which is one of the things that's been kind of tough this year, because generally, fellas, we tend to meet somebody we've seen or meet somebody new, and when we're introduced, we shake hands. And it's a lot nicer than tapping elbows. And quite often when we meet ladies, you touch cheeks. Technically you're giving a kiss, but you touch cheeks. When you come home, when you meet your loved ones, you give them a hug. We take these things for granted, but they're all a sense of touch, and they make us what we are. So when we get outside, as well as those temperatures that we talked about, actually putting our hands on things can be especially amazing. And I mean, one of the things when we've taken people out on walks is we always say to them, you know, we're going to get you to touch trees, and people go, yeah, really? And we say, you haven't got to hug them, just touch them. Although there is some evidence of tree hugging in some of the videos tonight, because tree hugging is not all bad. But it's when you go outside and you experience, maybe it's not a physical touch, but when you go outside and it's tipping down with rain, and if there's getting out of that rain and just enjoying the energy that there is in rain is also pretty spectacular. But it's being outside, because to a certain extent it's touch or maybe taste, but how good the air feels as it goes through your body. And you can feel that first breath of fresh air when you go outside. If you've been working in an office, getting outside and that air will make you feel better. Your body remembers what maybe your mind has forgotten. Now, on the subject of touch, we've got a little video for you. It's about trees and it's about touch. And we're going to start off with tonight's featured tree, the horse chestnut. So enjoy this little collection of 3 videos.
Where's it gone? There.
Is that not there? Yes, touch.
Oh, that's not the right one. Oh dear, what's going on here? This is the one we want.
Hi, this is a horse chestnut tree. Now look at the bark. It's got these small, almost kind of platelets all over the place. Now part of that is because it's a big old horse chestnut. But the bark, it kind of feels, it's warm to touch almost. You kind of feel if you could take all these platelets off and make it into a blanket, and it would keep you warm. You know, it's an amazing tree. It is rough. You wouldn't want to slide down it in any way, shape or form. But it's all these little sections and these little platelets and these little gaps. When you see that, you know it's a horse chestnut. Do you know what? This one's big enough. You can even give it a hug. This is a copper beech tree. And it's about a 60-year-old copper beech tree. So you can see it's got a pretty wide girth. If we look at the trunk, it's really kind of quite smooth. You know, if you were going to slide down a trunk, you probably would pick the copper beech, because it's going to be kindest to your skin. But it's hard, really hard, and it's cold. You know, you wouldn't want to make a blanket out of copper beech trunk, because it wouldn't do the job for you. But you know what? It's still a lovely, big old trunk, and you've got to give it a hug. Hello. This is an oak tree, and the bark is rough. As the tree gets bigger, the bark gets rougher and rougher. But it's an amazing tree to touch, because much as you wouldn't want to slide down one, it's actually quite warm when you actually come up and get your hands on it. But one of the things about the sense of touch is, with tree trunks, just how different they all are. So that's an oak tree, pretty rough, wouldn't want to slide down it, but it's quite warm.
Well, there is our section on touch. Now, thank you very much for that, Dad. And now we're moving on to our first Dawn story with a guest. So I'll bring up to the stage our first guest, which is Billy. And this is her video, which I will show you now. And then we'll bring her up and she'll quickly give you, well, have a quick chat about her Dawn story. Where's it gone? That's not a good start. Bear with me 1 second. The video has decided to disappear. That's what I'm going. Bear with me 1 second. It just having some technical difficulties. Now here you go. Now, thank you very much for that. And I will now bring Billy to the screen to talk about her Dawn story. Now, if you could unmute yourself for me, Billy, that would be gratefully appreciated.
Can you all hear me?
We can hear you. Now, we will leave you with your Dawn story. Oh, we can't hear you. We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you all.
Right. It was still saying I was muted. I wasn't. Don't know what was happening. Yeah, so that was my Dawn story. I went there about 2 weeks ago. I got a 6:30 in the morning. And thought, you know, in lockdown, it's really tough. It's really hard on like mental health. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to get an early start. I'm going to be productive. I'm going to go and watch sunrise. It was a beautiful, beautiful sunrise, as you can see. Yeah, so I thought I'd tell you a bit about it. So I went down to Dill Beach, and luckily for me, that is 10 minutes from my doorstep walk distance. So I went down there, went down the pier, went down where the fishing boats are, which are lovely. And it took around 20-30 minutes for it to fully come up. So not a lot of time. You can definitely fit it in your day. And, you know, I always think you can kind of grab a coffee or grab a blanket to keep you warm, because it can be a little bit chilly, but it is worth it. And you can definitely make a thing of it. It's really, really nice thing to do. And I felt really wholesome after. You know, like I said, I was really productive after, and it's just really lovely. So for me, I have always kind of been a sunset kind of girl, because I don't really like getting up too early in the mornings. But sunrise has definitely grabbed me at the moment. It's just a completely different feel. It's like a new start in the morning. You're getting up really early, you're being productive, you're doing something with your day. You could easily just sit inside, have a lay and not get out of bed until 10 o'clock. But it is worth it. So I would encourage everyone to do it. And for me, I kind of use sunrise recently as well, as a way of dealing with lockdown. So like Simon was saying earlier, kind of thing, he mentioned about mental health and things like that. And it is a really tough time in lockdown. I think everyone's kind of feeling a bit fed up. You're kind of trapped inside and there's not much you can do, but being around nature, that's never going to go anywhere. And most of us are really lucky that we can step outside and we have a beach, we've got a forest or woodland or fields, anything to walk around, and you have that there on your doorstep. And we are so lucky. So, you know, when the weather's nice, it's not pouring it down with rain, unless you like doing that. I don't, because I get my hair all wet. But if you do like doing all of that, then even if it's raining, go and do it, because it is worth it. I kind of use it as a way to ground myself. So if I'm feeling really stressed, or, you know, if I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed with the current situation or anything like that, if I've just got anything on my mind, I will just go down to the beach and it really clears my mind. I feel so peaceful, and because it's such an early morning as well, there's not many people around. It's your time for yourself, which is just lovely, and you don't get that very often. And I mean, especially if you've got big families or you've got children or anything like that, you kind of struggle to have your own time. So it's so useful to go out in such a quiet time of the morning and have that time to just relax and unwind and ground yourself with whatever's on your mind.
That's brilliant, Billy, because we know that lockdown's been a bit tougher for you, possibly than many of us, and we know that you've had to isolate more, and I know that, you know, you've had to stay at home. So I mean, obviously getting out earlier has helped maybe extend those hours of daylight that you get. It's absolutely brilliant to have you come on and just share your story. And I know that, as if you like, the sooner that you can actually get back to some kind of normality and catch up with Ross, for want of a better example, that it will change. So thank you so much for coming on and giving us your contribution. One of the things about, if you like, this Zoom and this group is that people can come on and share their stories. So if you've got a Dawn story, we'd love you to come on. It's been absolutely fantastic. Billy mentioned getting outside in the rain. Now, those of you that were certainly local will remember that last Sunday was a bit damp, to say the least. So we, both myself and Ross, spent part of our Sunday outside. And what we've got now is a couple of videos of one of the ways you can actually organise your own garden so that you can go out and enjoy that energy and that almost electricity and the vibe of when the rain is coming down at any point. And let's play the videos. Let's go for it.
Good morning, Simon Bonner here. It's Sunday the 15th. You might know it's raining. I should have been out this morning with the chamber, putting up the Christmas trees in town. But it's blowing that much and it's raining that much that they postponed it till tomorrow. And you know, that's amazing, because I'm now outside in my garden, and as you can see, but I'm sat, or I will be sat, in my pergola, which is, if I drop down there, you can see we have a roof. And if I come around this side, behind me, you can see the fence, that black fence, that's keeping out the north wind. And the wall of my office, actually, behind me, is keeping out the east wind. So that means that I can sit here pretty calmly, pretty quietly, and just enjoy the energy, the excitement, that alive feeling that you get when you get out in the weather. Now, I appreciate that if you're out and you're getting wet and you're getting blown, it's pretty gruesome. But if you don't have to, and you can get outside and be dry and be warm, to hear the wind whistling around, to watch the rain coming down, it's alive and it's energy and it's electric. But also just spare a moment for the birds that are still out feeding, for the animals. We've still got to make a living, even when it's throwing it at you. And just be a part of that. You know, it's not just going outside in this dark weather, or weather we think is dark, or us being dark going out in it that's amazing. But don't forget, when you've been out and you've been blown around and you've experienced that alive, energetic world that we live in, it's really cool to go back indoors, sit by the fire, hear it crackling, watch those flames flickering, or climb into a warm bath, because those are the contrasts. And maybe it's the contrasts that really do make us feel alive. But you know what? I'm going to enjoy my cup of tea. Thank you. And I'm going to enjoy my bacon and egg sandwich. Thank you. And I will look forward to catching you next time. Simon Pollard, Simple Life Circle. See you soon. Bye.
Hello, Ross here doing a little video for Simple Life Circle. Now, we would like to run a section at some point talking about walking in the rain and why being out in the rain is so great. Now, I don't know if you can see behind me how it is tipping it down right now, and we're very fortunate in our garden to have a pergola with a roof. That means that you can be out in the rain and not get wet, and listen to how violent it is, how angry it is, but also how peaceful it is, because it drowns out every other noise. And now, that is amazing to be able to sit out here, especially during thunderstorms, during lightning storms, and all you get a little bit wet on the walk down, and other than that, it's amazing. So no, it's Ross checking in, Simple Life Circle. We hope to see you along soon.
Okay. So, a little view of how we get out to enjoy the rain. Now, got a prop here. We've got a prop. This is a Roman centurion's helmet, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about how that came to be here. But it's kind of a great introduction to Ross's story this week on long distance walking. Anybody think they know which long distance walk we might have done? Anyone got any ideas?
Please put it in the chat if you have. Judith's got it right. It's Hadrian's Wall. Now, also, quickly before we move on to Hadrian's Wall, we had a couple of people come back in the chat. Someone said, Billy, your pictures were lovely. And we've also had someone come back saying, do you know people who love the rain have a name? Apparently they're called pluvophiles or plovophiles. I'm not entirely sure how you say it, but no, I did not know that. And that is something definitely that I am one of them as well. But it's all about keeping the rain out of your head. If you keep the rain out of your head, then you're on to the winner. But as soon as you let the rain get into your head, that's when it all goes downhill.
So we're going to have a section on pluvophiles. Pluvophiles?
Pluvophiles. I'm not entirely sure.
Indeed. We were going to start talking in this one about unleash the inner walker. But I'm probably going to save that one for shorter time. But it came out of the conversation we had with Anna Louise on Radio Kent on Sunday. And I kind of thought we've got to use that one. But for now, long distance walks. And here's Ross to tell you a little bit about the Hadrian's Wall path.
So let me just load this up. Where's the button gone? It's here somewhere.
It's underneath the
it's
underneath the tool. It's underneath the toolbar.
I'm not entirely sure how to get rid of the toolbar, which is amazingly helpful, to say the least. Right, let's try it this way. See if this is any better.
There you go.
Now, Hadrian's Wall, a couple of facts for you before we start. So, the Hadrian's Wall path, because the Hadrian's Wall and Hadrian's Wall are actually slightly separate. Pretty much, it basically means Hadrian's Wall is in one place, and rather than you walking over the top of it, you walk to the side of it. That's essentially all it is. You've got Hadrian's Wall and the path to the side. Hadrian's Wall is 84 miles long. The path is also 84.5 miles long, because apparently to walk one side of the path adds an extra half a mile. Unsure about that, but I mean, half a mile to get an amazing view at Hadrian's Wall, I'm not complaining. The wall walks goes from Wall's End in the east and goes to the west in Bowness-on-Sea. It's been a national trail since 2003, which means essentially it gets the nice fancy signposts with the acorns on. The majority of the wall is still visible. Now, that to me is brilliant because you can walk along the path and you get to see this bit of history in our country that has been there for decades, well, centuries. And that is spectacular.
About 2,000 years.
Yeah, something like that. Most of the path along the wall is flat, but you do get some sections which are very up and down, up and down, up and down. But I won't talk too much about that. I'll let the pictures do it justice. Now, slide 1. So, the image on the left is at the start of the walk, which surprisingly starts in Newcastle on the River Tyne. Now, that is about 8, 9 o'clock in the morning after travelling up the previous day, and we spent the previous day on a train ride with the dog to get to Newcastle to start the walk. Now, that wasn't much fun because the entire train journey, as much as I'm not a fan of train journeys, the dog wasn't much of a fan either. He spent the entire trip whinging. Every single person on the train was sick of hearing him whine by the end of that train journey.
Including us.
Including us. Even with having earphones, I could still hear him whinging the entire trip. Now, that's not much fun, but you know when you get to the end of that train journey, you're going to start saying, well, the dog ain't going to be whinging at all.
In fact, it has to be said that for the entirety of the main walk, where Blitz was in his zone, he didn't put a foot wrong. He was the most amazingly well-behaved companion you could imagine on a walk.
And he also had a really bad habit of when you'd be in the tent of an evening, normally we'd have the dog sleep down the ends, but no, he liked to sleep in the middle of us. If you imagine you've got a small tent which fits in the rucksack, which you can just about see on Dad's back, and then you've got to fit 2 people and a medium-sized dog in there, all laying flat. It wasn't great, but especially when it was wet and you're laying in a tent with a wet dog and you're nice and dry in your sleeping bag and he's sopping wet, it wasn't much fun. Now that wasn't great, but having the experience of waking up every morning 2 licks from him telling him it was time to get up because he needs to go to the toilet or you want to go walking was amazing.
Well, it's probably just making a comment on your personal hygiene, Ross.
Yeah, probably. Now, the image on the right is in the garden of a place called the Swan, which is now correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the village is called Hedon or Hedon. I'm not entirely sure, but that is on the same day. That is in the evening of the same day. So we'd spent all day, we walked all the way along the River Tyne in Newcastle, came out the other side, kept following the river, and then we stayed at a B&B, which was incredible. The view we had out of the window of that B&B was amazing. It was in the top of the building and it had a skylight, and you could see that view. You can see behind me sat on that bench there out of the window. So when you woke up to that the next morning, that was amazing.
It was raining.
It was raining, so it wasn't as spectacular as that, but it was still phenomenal. And I'm pretty sure in that pub we had some lovely food. So if you're ever up in Hedon and you fancy, anyway, if you ever walk in Hadrian's Wall, go to the Swan for dinner, because if you sit out there in summer, you get to look at that view whilst you're eating. And I can't think of anything much better than that. To me, that is spectacular. Now, this slide, I mean, we touched on it partially with rain stories, but this slide to me is all about trying to show people that if you keep the rain out of your head, you will experience so much more. You will take in so much more. Now, even if you haven't got a pergola in your garden, you can still be outside in a raincoat with a hood up. Now, I know Billy said she doesn't like being outside in the rain, but we also know that there are some people that are pluvophiles and do like being out in the rain. Now, the image on the left is basically, to me, just showing that Dad and possibly not the dog, but Dad knows that if you keep the rain out of your head, you'll see so much more. You'll take in what's around you. You're not just thinking, oh, I'm wet, oh, I'm cold, oh, I'm damp. And that's always a good start, because I've grown up in a family where it doesn't matter what the weather is, you're outside, you're walking the dogs, doesn't matter, we've got things to go and do. I'd get picked up from school, didn't matter if I was raining, we'd go walking around the fields before we went home, because my primary school was only up the road. And I'd love to have a day where I know everyone that comes to the Simple Life Circle can say that they might not go out as much in the rain, but they do go out in the rain and enjoy it. And to us, when you're on a hike, it is a lifestyle. Going out on a hike, you wake up, you break camp, and you leave. Doesn't matter what the weather's like. That's what happens, and that's how you do it. And it's getting into that mindset of, all right, this is what today's going to bring. Okay, think positive about it. I've got a coat. I've got waterproof trousers. Okay, let's crack on with the day. Pack's got a rain cover as well, so none of my stuff's going to get wet. We're just going to get a bit damp. At the end of the day, you're going to see a lot of things you wouldn't necessarily see if it was dry. And you might find small little shelters where you've got waterfalls, or the river, or the water runs off the wall, which I think happened a couple of times when we were walking Hadrian's Wall, and you see the water falling down it. Now, we would have never seen that if it didn't rain. Now, no one can ever justify saying I don't want to go outside because it's raining, in my opinion. That's my opinion, but each to their own. But I hope from running this Simple Life Circle, we get to a point where everyone becomes a pluviphile. I still hope I'm saying that right.
If you've got any pluviphile stories, you put them in the chat and we'll maybe mention them after this feature.
And the image on the right was actually just after we'd left the B&B on day 2 of the walk. And this was our first glimpse of the wall. Now, you think how many years that has been there, probably how many people have stood in that exact same spot where I was, and took in the fact that that is the start of an adventure. That is the start of where we were going to go. And that is incredible. So incredible. You cannot beat that feeling, the excitement of when you're about to start something that you've been looking forward to for a long time. Even if it's not walking, even if it's just getting out, taking the dog out, or maybe it's your first walk in the rain. You really cannot beat it. Now, on to slide 3. Now, if you look very carefully in the left image of slide 3, if you follow the mountain top, you'll see a couple of sections of trees and little forest sections, and you can just about see Hadrian's Wall on the top. Now, fair play to the Romans for managing to build a wall going up and down like that. I feel very sorry for whoever had to carry the stones up there, but it's incredible that they managed to build a wall over a landscape like that. And there is nowhere else in the UK you can go and see something like that. Now, to me, that is incredible. And the fact of we were very fortunate on that day, we had a clear sky and we could see for miles. We could see so far. It was breathtaking. So breathtaking. And the image on the right is actually one of the old Roman forts called Housteads, or at least what remains of it. The fort was very famous for actually having communal toilets called latrines. Essentially, it was a section in the middle with 2 sinks at either end, and everyone just sat at a set cubicle as such, did their business and have a chat. Because we do know that Romans did like to have communal baths and communal toilets.
In fact, there's a very famous picture, reconstruction of Romans using the latrine and the sponge, because as well as having the seat with the hole in it, and obviously there's water running underneath that, so obviously everything that they deposited would get flushed away. But there was also a smaller kind of channel at the front, which they'd used to wash their sponges, which they then used to wash themselves. So it's kind of, it's got a bit of notoriety for that. So just imagine lots of Romans all gathered together, all with their sponges, and you kind of get the picture.
Right, and on to our final slide, oh, if the computer decides to work, of the walk. Now, if you could please put in the chat for me, does anyone recognise the tree on the right? I'm hoping someone recognises it, but we shall see. Now, the tree on the right, just wait and see if anyone's got any responses.
It was in a very well-known film approximately 30 years ago.
It had Morgan Freeman and Kevin Costner in it.
And Michael Wincott. No?
No one's come back. Well, the film is Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. There is a very, very, very famous scene at the start of that film where you've got Kevin Costner as Robin Hood walking along the top, being followed by Morgan Freeman, who is essentially his sidekick during the film. And to me, there we go, Lydia's got it, Robin Hood's. To me, that going there, because I remember growing up and watching that film, probably on video. It was a long, long time ago. I remember watching the film on video. And suddenly then, 10 years later, I'm walking along Hadrian's Wall. I think before we left, I only found out that the tree was actually there, possibly when we actually started doing the walk. I don't remember actually finding out it was on the walk until we started.
It's the scene where, if you like, Kevin Costner and Morgan Freeman are walking along. Morgan Freeman, being a Muslim, wants to know where East is because he needs to pray to Allah. And at that moment, Michael Wincott, who's Guy of Gisborne, comes through chasing the young kid and up into the tree, and Robin comes into the rescue and to see what the situation is, and they tell him about the fact this boy's a poacher, and he's, they get into the thing about the fact that he had something like 12 soldiers and he got this one boy, and why did he need so many? And then they have a battle, and of course it's filmed. So Kevin Costner won. Watched the film lots of times, probably too many times. That's the story. Sorry, man. Interrupted again.
That's right. That's not a problem at all. I mean, basically, if you've got knowledge that I haven't, then that always helps. An image on the left is the end of the walk. That is, well, for us it was the end. For some people that might be the start. But that was in Bowness-on-Sea on the final day. And the thing that got me with the end of the walk was that Bowness-on-Sea is entirely flat. You drop out of the hills, you drop out of all of the up and down, up and down, up and down, and you just drop into just walking flat. And it was one of the moments where the landscape changed so dramatically, and you really wasn't expecting it to change like it did. It was one of those moments, and you appreciate what you just experienced, and you think that's the end of going up and down mountainsides and being next to the wall, essentially being part of Hadrian's Wall for the time we spent doing the walk. Now, to me, that was incredible, and that was possibly one of my favourite hikes that we've ever done. Now, I'm sure you're all sick of hearing my voice, so I will let you go to Dad, who's going to read you a section from his book, which you can get if you become a member of the Simple Life Circle for free with your subscription. Now,
more on that later, but just a couple of extracts I'm going to read. The first one is about the wall itself, and the second one explains a little bit more about this wonderful prop and how it came to be here, and about the choices that sometimes we make. So, life on Hadrian's Wall must have been bleak in winter. The views of the hills are superb, but in winter the winds would come whistling through, probably continually. They would be pretty fierce sometimes, even in summer. Love going around a corner and seeing a whole new view. A change in the ruggedness, or a lake, or a forest upon the hilltop. And there is so much wall still here. Especially in the middle section. It might not all be genuine, but it's still evocative of what the original wall must have been like. And if you shut your eyes, you can just about hear the Roman army and the shouts of men and the neighing of horses. I love it. There are many stories of that walk, but again, this is not the place for them. Suffice to say that when Gillian arrived in Bowness on Solway, it was just superb for many reasons. I'm going to miss a section, but to get back to that Roman helmet, You see, when Ross and I had been walking the walk, we had popped into Berda's Wold Roman fort to look for a cap. I'd left mine at home, and when you're used to A, having one, and B, used to it keeping the sun out of your eyes, you really miss it when you haven't got one. We couldn't find one anywhere. We'd been in every shop, every store, every visitor centre, nothing. But at Bird Oswald, they had a centurion's helmet. I wanted one. It was really cool. I ummed and ahed about it for a few days. In the past, I would have had the mickey taken out of me something rotten for wanting to buy it and put it on display at home. And indeed, when I announced my intentions, Ross did. But Gillian didn't. Indeed, straight away she started thinking about where we might put it and then how we could decorate wherever it ended up at home. This was so cool. This is one of the contributions to the conclusion that this woman was for keeping.
Well, we've had a couple of things come back in the chat after talking about, well, walking in the rain and especially the Robin Hood section as well. We've had one come back saying, I don't mind the rain since having a dog. Put the raincoat on and the TJ, the dog, loves it and splashing in the muddy puddles too. When I was younger, I remember me being at home and there was thunder and the heavens opened. I went out and had the time of my life. I still remember the feeling I had when I did it. Going home to a warm bath and feeling incredible. I slept like a baby that evening. I'll do it again soon. Thanks you both for refreshing my memory. I'll take my 14-year-old out into it soon so she can also enjoy. In fact, the whole family are going to do it. Yeah, why not? Get out, enjoy the rain.
Absolutely. But if you've got stories about a favourite walk or a fantastic walk, we are going to run this section called Unleash Being a Walker. And it'd be great to have some contributions to go with that.
We've also had some come back as well saying, we'll talk about the rains. Apparently seen in Dirty Dancing. Now, I don't know if I've ever actually seen Dirty Dancing, but Dirty Dancing, apparently there's a part where there's them in the rain.
They're doing dancing practice out in the rain, and they actually even get into the lake so that Patrick Swayze can lift the lady who's the co-star whose name is, and she lifts her up, and they practice the lift, and it's a well-known cinematic moment.
Maybe I'll have to watch it at some point then.
With Billy, you'd enjoy it more with Billy.
Are we watching it in the rain or are we watching it indoors?
That depends on the electricity.
Yeah, we'll work that one out. And we've had something else come back when I grew up in Kerala, South India. And when the monsoon rains came, we all went outside to enjoy the huge drops of warm rain. Oh yeah, I expect India is an entirely different world. I expect the humidity is different to here. The heat itself is probably so much more intense than it is here. So I expect the rain out there is a warm welcome for all. So maybe we can take a step from the Indians and maybe we can all get out in the rain at some point. When next time it's raining, put your coat on and go. Take the dog out, experience it, enjoy it.
What was the word for people who like the rain?
Oh, let me find it. I have it here somewhere.
I've forgotten it.
Pluvophiles.
Pluvophiles. And Indian pluvophiles. Right. You introduce the next bit, Mark.
Oh, yes. So the next section we have is the horse chestnut. And this is also a part of a special guest. So, Mr. Ash Lawrence, please could you unmute yourself?
The video.
So we've got a video first. This is just, we're going to play the video. And then we will come back to you, Ash. Sorry about that. Where is this video? I can't find it again.
No.
Where's that gone? We're having more technical difficulties. Please hold with us.
Not there. Right, let's get Ash on and then we'll have a look for it.
Sorry, Ash, could you please come back? The video has magically disappeared.
I love being prepared.
It's one of those amazing technical things. Everything was there when we started, and it's an Apple thing, I think.
The wonders of Zoom. So good evening, everybody. So I'm going to tell you a story and then I'm going to share the screen with you and give you a few tips. So when I was a young lad, we moved out of East London when I was about 5. and we moved to the lovely town of Sevenoaks. Now, I hadn't seen many trees because there wasn't a lot of trees in London, especially around the end of Limehouse Causeway. And the house that I lived in Sevenoaks, up the end of the garden was this great big tree. I didn't know what it was. All I knew looking at it was there was all of these things hanging off of it that looked like spiky balls. I had absolutely no idea what they was. And I said to my dad, "What's that then, Dad?" And he says, "They're conkers, boy. What's the matter with you?" And I said, "What's a conker?" So he picked a stick up and he threw the stick up the tree, and a couple of these spiky balls come down, and then he broke them open, and there's inside is the conker. And I said, "So what do you do with them?" And he said, "Well, you play conkers with them." And he taught me how to play conkers. And I've still got some of the bruises now, I'm sure, up my arms. And those of you who can remember what that was like, you will, yeah, you'll have the lumps and bumps. I don't think you're allowed to do it in school anymore. But I remember taking the conkers to school and swapping them for sweets. So for me, the conker tree has always had, you know, a soft spot in my heart. So the house that we've moved into where I live now, and I've been here for 18 years, when we come here, there was a conker tree in the back garden, and it wasn't that big. It was about 10 years old. So over the years, I've watched it grow, and it's grown into a beautiful tree. And you think about it in the spring and the beautiful white blossom on it and the way that it develops and fills out, it's absolutely beautiful. Going through the summer and the shade that it provides to sit under in the sun, it's just one of those special moments. And then going into the autumn with the conkers, and then it sheds its leaves and all of the conkers, and seeing the squirrels come and pick them up and use them for their food through the winter. It's a special moment. Now, about 6 or 7 years ago, I started to notice that the leaves started turning browner halfway through the winter. And I didn't know what that was and didn't pay much attention to it. Then another year went and it seemed to get worse, and another year went. And last year we made some inquiries about what it was. So I had to investigate, because also the bark started changing on the tree, and one of the big branches started to crack, and that part of it died early, and I couldn't work out what was going. So we found out. Now I'm going to share the screen with you just to show you a few pictures of our tree. So one of the things with this is we found out that we had a leaf mining moth. Now you might ask, what is it? So simple, it's a tiny little moth, and it produces caterpillars. Now what that does, if you can see that picture, it starts off with tiny little dots that go light green, and then they get worse and worse and start to go brown. And then eventually the whole of the leaf is brown. And you don't think that's much on its own. And then it's not really serious. And you think, right, that's not going to kill the tree. How can these little caterpillars do anything really to do it? But I'll come on to that more in a minute. It's been in this country about 18 years, funnily enough, and it spreads, as you can see there, about 20 miles a year up the country. But for some reason, it seems to have stopped round about Newcastle. I don't know what that is. I'm not an expert at all about it. But this is the leaf mining moth, and this has started, and those leaves there are some that you can see on our tree. Now, the next bit is about the leaf blotch fungus. Now, it does look very similar. There's another picture of it, but it's slightly different. And all of that just turns them brown, and it doesn't really do an awful lot. They just get browner and browner as they go. And at the end of the year, just drop off like anything. It doesn't really do a lot of damage to the actual tree. And that's been here over 100 years. So not a great deal of problem. So you might have seen that. I wasn't aware of it on our particular tree, as I say, till about 6-7 years ago. Now we get to the worst bit, and this is the Conker Canker. Now, what is it? And that, if you can see that, you must have seen that on conker trees around, because it's becoming more and more common. Sorry, it's not popular at all, is it? What damage does it actually do? Well, it clogs up the veins. It's like us with our cholesterol levels and stuff like that, where we're absolutely bunged up, and the poor tree, it can't actually get any goodness going up through the trunk. And part of that comes from that moth, because the moth and the caterpillars, they destroy the leaves and stop the photosynthesis in the leaves. So it is an overall thing. Now, apparently, that came about the same time as the leaf miner. Now, I don't believe in coincidence. I don't think there's any such thing. So the two are very closely knit together. Now, apparently, the conker trees in this country are going to be gone between 15 and 20 years. Now, I don't know how true that is, but some of the research that I've been doing about this is saying they're going to be gone altogether. Our tree, the poor thing, it's just, I don't know how much longer we've got it. But what they've said to us, and if any of you have got conker trees and the same thing, every year I used to leave all the leaves on the ground and for leaf mulch. And from that, I thought that was a good thing. The reality of it was the caterpillars or the moth, they lay all their pupae in the leaves and it just stays there. So instead of thinking I'm doing good for the, for the garden, I'm actually increasing it for the tree for the next year. So they just come back. So this year I've absolutely cleaned the garden. I put everything into the fire pit and burnt all of the leaves so far. There's a few left to come and I'm going to wipe them out. There's going to be none left to see if it actually makes a difference. So have a look for yours, see what you've got. If you've got a conker tree, don't keep the leaves, get rid of them. And if you can, how about planting a few conker trees just to make a difference, because they will be gone very soon. Thanks, everybody. I hope that was a bit of use for you.
That was absolutely brilliant. Thank you very much, Ash. I mean, we're lucky we've got a very big, very healthy horse chestnut and our village green. And we'll dig out the video and we'll show it to you next time. But it's at the moment, it's as far as we can see, it's healthy. It certainly hasn't got that kind of canker or anything else. But I actually missed the opportunity, and now I've lost it up. See, I actually bought a prop specially, and I took the lace out of one of my boots so that I could actually show you. And we'd intended to have the conker on last week. So I've got a boot with no lace all week because I wanted to show you this conker. Because
you're just showing your age now, Simon.
Well, absolutely. Because I mean, I remember at school, every time your conker won a fight, it became a oneer or a twoer or a threer or a fourer. And every now and then you'd have somebody who'd go, well, I've got a 999er. And you go, I want to fight your conker. And they say, no, because if you beat his 999er with your brand new conker, bearing in mind his 999er was knackered and it was split and the skin was falling off, you'd have a brand spanking new conker that was a 1000er. And that was the bragging rights, not that you could go to the pub at that age, but the bragging rights to have a 1000er conker was huge. So I bought one out, and funny, I used to go to help out at the local estate on a Saturday, and we had a spontaneous conker fight one day. And do you know what I'd forgotten? Ash alluded to it earlier. I'd forgotten how much it hurt when you actually flung the conker around and you missed the conker and it came back and smashed you in the forearm. But
you haven't lived if you haven't got a conker bruise.
Yeah, stories of conkers. What do I do with them nowadays? I've got them in the pockets of my coat and I kind of twist them round with the stones with holes in as well whilst I'm out walking from time to time. But absolutely brilliant. So thank you very much, Ash. It's been amazing to have you on. And we need to move forwards because it's 5 to 8 and we've got a couple of things still to do. So moving swiftly onwards. Those of you that were here last week will know that we were looking to make this a membership site, and we were looking at ways to actually include or make that a really good value proposition for you. So everything we said last week is still true, still stands. And for joining up, becoming a member, which right now will still cost £15. And for that, you get 4 sessions of us every month. You get to anything that we can sell through the site, whether that's hedgehog boxes, bird boxes, bat boxes, gravel boards with hedgehog holes if you like them, or even go out on the walks and talks that we do. We can give you 15% off everything that we include for that. You obviously get access to the closed Facebook site, which will only be for the people who are in the group. And it's not going to be immediate, but we're also going to look to have a pretty comprehensive website, which will give you access to that as well. But what we're going to do is we're going to make the first 15 people that subscribe. And incidentally, we've had our first subscription today, which we're really excited about. That's absolutely fantastic. And we say thank you very much indeed for that, Chris. Brilliant. We're going to make the first 15 people founder members, and they will get a founder member badge in the Facebook site, but they also will get to keep their membership at £15 per month for as long as either we are running or they stay members. Yeah, that's forever. So if we run for 10 years, even if inflation does 5,000% a year, you'll still only be paying £15 for your membership, which we think is pretty cool. Everybody who signs up after that, but before Christmas, will get to sign up at that rate of £15. At the end of December, we're going to stop the subscription briefly. And when we reopen it in January, it's going to be 20 quid. So we think that that's pretty cool. We hope that you think that's pretty cool. We also, though, if that wasn't enough, we're going to have an affiliate scheme running from January, whereby if you bring somebody in as a member and you go through, we'll give you your own personal link, then we'll take a £5 off up to obviously 3 people or 4 people, all the while that they are members of the Simple Life Circle. So hopefully that's amazing. We have got a form now which you can have if you'd like to just let us know, but shortly that will be available on the website, and as soon as we've got that ready to rock and roll, and our website fella's working on that now, we'll get that out to you and we'll let you know on the Facebook site firstly, but obviously on this site as soon as that is available. Okay, so if you've got any questions about membership, obviously let us know. But the more that we can actually do to provide this and spend as much time as possible providing the best of service as we can, and we are learning as we go along, that would be great. So yeah, brilliant. That's that one. And thank you very much for Chris for being our first person in. We were so chuffed when that came through today. Okay.
We've had a couple of things come back in the chat, and it seems that we actually have had a lot of people that want to bring back the Conker challenges and the Conker tournaments. So maybe next year, as it's been spoken about in the chat, that we have a Simple Life Circle Conker tournament. Pandemic pending, of course, pandemic pending. And we'll have to check health and safety regulations for it. And
maybe we could have a line of Conker Challenge clothing with especially, you know, strap-on forearm protection.
Well, maybe we can.
15% off.
Well, if you become a member, you get 15% off. And also, I've also seen someone saying they're going to put their conkers in the oven. Please don't cheat. I will disqualify you for cheating. Just to put it out there. But I'm definitely down for this. I remember doing it when I was younger, but I actually spent more time trying to find the biggest conker than actually trying to win any conker tournaments. I remember being probably still in single digits of age and ended up going down to our local horse chestnut tree and basically picking up a bag of conkers, put them all in a bag, got them, yeah, Greg, which conkers? Then being of that age group, left them somewhere and I found them in a bag a couple of months later, and it wasn't a pretty sight because I never got round to actually using them, probably because of school's health and safety. But no, we have a weekly challenge for you all. Now, this week's challenge is to go out and to find a horse chestnut. Can you show us a horse chestnut near you? Can you show us that you've made a conker for a conker challenge near you? Can you, and if you can't get outside, please get someone to go out for you and hold a picture of you with it, or a FaceTime call or something of you by a horse chestnut. We'd love to see it. Please put it in the Facebook group so we can all see. And if any of you do have conker fights, we'd like to see videos of that as well. That would be great. But we take no responsibility. That was your decision.
Brilliant.
Now, next week's topics. Now, next week, we've got a special guest coming on to do a section on a photo of a bee that she has taken.
She adopted and rescued a bee, and she's taken some great photos, and this is Emily, and she's going to come on and tell us all about her bee.
I will be running another section on the walks. Next week will be the Ridgeway. Now, next week is the Ridgeway. And then after that, I've only got one more walk to go. So if there's anything else you'd like me to cover in the base of hiking or long distance walks or favourite walks, please let me know in the chat now or on the Facebook group. Please let us know of anyone that would like to see certain things.
Royko Bothy.
There's one already.
Royko Bothy. Tell them the story after that about Royko Bothy.
Well, I'll tell a story of Royko Bothy.
And the club hammer.
We'll go.
Royko
We'll get on
Bothy
to that.
and the club hammer.
Well, I think that is all of our announcements for the week. Now, I think we've actually done pretty well for time. We've only just stepped over 8 o'clock. So I think now we have reached the end of everything, and it is time for our last segment, which I will hand over to Dad to do.
Yeah. Remember at the beginning, I read you the section from Being Rock about being outside and how getting outside is the best brain gym going. And I would suggest that's because that's where we came from, you know, that's part of our natural heritage. And our bodies remember our connection with the outdoors, even if our minds have forgotten with our looking at screens and tapping on phones and everything else. Because when we get outside, there's a kind of beating heart to everything that's out there, not just animals and things like us, but as Ash was saying with the trees, there's a heart inside trees and all plants that pumps liquids around their body. Now, if you get out there, as you're walking out, if you just let your mind clear, you can leave your anxieties or worries or concerns behind you. Just let them go away. Now, that's not as difficult as it might sound. But if you can find a favorite place somewhere, because there's always places outside that have a vibe or an energy or something about them. Sometimes it's a tree trunk, or sometimes it's a sunken glade, or it could be the top of a hill, but somewhere that rings up for you. And if you get to there, then to spend some time, just stop and just try and give yourself briefly that gift of stillness. Because after you've walked there and you've left your anxieties behind and you've found that place and just stopped and you are still, just try and remember the inner you, the one that doesn't have all those voices running around in your head the entire time. I guarantee if you can sit without distractions for 10 minutes, you will feel better. And if you can sit there for half an hour, better still. And then obviously when you've had that interaction, then go back home and you will feel happier. And if you've got any doubts about that, just try it. Cool. That's it. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming. We'll be back here next week, same time, same place. Get involved. Thank you very much.
See you all next week, hopefully.
Thank you very much. And I'm going to look out for the horse chestnut. I loved conkers as a child, and even now with my grandchildren, I've been playing them. So yeah, I think we should go for it next year. Thanks, guys.
Definitely. Is it too late to go and find conkers? Because Jack wants a conker battle.
There are still a few about. We have seen a couple.
We're going to find someone at the weekend, and he's not going to play his sister because she'll win.
Get into training.
Yeah. See you later, guys. Nice one.
Check out the new webpage which Tony's put up on